Hello, my name is Jake Bullum. I was a recent BBA ISA grad at Kennesaw State University, and currently I'm a Master's of Science and Information Systems student, currently at the same university. Today we will be talking about security governance in IS 8310. So let's take a look at our key objectives for today. Today we're going to describe how security governance and enforcing policy affects an organization and its definition of said security governance policy. We're going to discuss how policy is conducted throughout the organization, and we're going to discuss the issues in how the policy is implemented and regulated. What is security governance and how does it apply? Security governance is the set of responsibilities and practices exercised by the board and executive management. This includes CEOs, CISOs, COOs, and other C-level suite executives. They are then passed down to management to help carry out the directives of the policy and help enforce its compliance. Every company should have some form of security policy in place, even if it's a small amount, addressing the company's needs and issues. Part of that includes risk management, being able to help assess what types of risks the companies have, what things are out there, and how to mitigate the risks of occurring, including cyber attacks or other types of incident response tasks. Other things in the security policy, they need to address the company's needs. They need to be relevant to how the company operates. And then what can you do? This is a big uh, part of security governance. It shows tells employees what they can and cannot do within the company and helps abide by a policy that shows what is right and what is wrong. This is called an acceptable use policy, or an AUP. And the compliance. Well, what happens if it's violated? What are the disciplinary issues? What are the actions that an employee is going to face? What legal things could occur from this? Which goes into regulatory and compliance. Regulatory and compliance is very important because violations can impact the company in very negative ways. So really though, why is security governance a need? Well, as technology emerges and we move on to new things and bigger things, and we have more technology incorporating our companies, including this one, we have to keep up with it. There's a lot of, with all the cyber vulnerabilities and technological advances, there's more need for going with emerging technology and enforcing a security governance. There's also cost benefit analysis. How much risk are you willing to take? And then you got to protect the company's assets and profit. When you're governing security within an organization, your purpose is to help protect the company's assets. When you protect the company's assets and you protect the company's infrastructure, you in turn save the company money in the long run because you're not spending money on attacks and risks. You're actually making profit off of that. So in the end time, it works out better. Also, the goals of the organization. You got to make it relevant to the goals of the organization. You got to see this mission statement, see where the company's at currently, see where the problems are, see what you can do to enforce the security governance to help strengthen that. And then the assurance and trust. Insurance is really important. Clients will want to see that the organization has a strength in security governance within its organization, knowing that that data is going to be protected, knowing that data is going to be safe, and knowing that the risk for compromise or losing on their part their information is mitigated. And then most important, I think, in my opinion, is the brand. If you don't have a solid brand and you can't protect your brand and knowing that the assurance and trust of your organization is strong, then none of these other things apply. This is because clients do not want it deters clients away from wanting to work with an organization whose brand's compromised because they can't control their own security measures. They either get attacked or the information is leaked and they can't trust them. That in turn affects the goals of the organization. It affects the assets. it impacts the infrastructure, the profit, and it puts the company behind. This is why establishing a strong security brand within your organization and protecting the reputation of the organization is deeply important. So what is the acceptable use? Well, in an ICC policy, you're going to come up with a scope. You're going to describe the layout of how things are supposed to be done and what is going to be covered in an acceptable use. Then you're going to come up with authorized use. Authorized use is going to say who and what can access what systems, what technology, what devices, and how, and at what period of time are they allowed to use that. In addition, you're going to have prohibited use. This is the big can and cannot do. This is going to highlight to employees what they're allowed to do on the networks, what they're allowed to do on their machines, what are they allowed to do on their laptops, what they're capable of doing within the grounds of the organization. It also highlights the violation. This is very important because you need to express what is a violation of the organization, so that way employees understand what is right and what is wrong. Then you have to manage. You have to manage the systems. You have to relay this information clearly to managers, so that way they understand how to go about reporting this to compliance, reporting this to employees, and making sure the flow of this is operational. When there's a violation that occurs, whether it's with an employee or contractor or some third party within the organization, there has to be a strong compliance way where the manager can report the incident to compliance and it can be dealt with in a proper manner, whether it's disciplinary or legal action, because this is protecting the whole firm and company as a whole. And then you have to do reviews and audits. You got to look at the different stats. You got to look at the different things in compliance, what things are being reported, what things are not being reported. Are people aware of the situation? Is training being conducted? And then audits. You got to audit your own systems. You got to audit your security, whether it's in-house or third party. It has to be audited. You have to make sure that you are following the practices that you're trying to push out. And the liability of the company. When you're following all the acceptable use methods, you are protecting the company from liability issues. You're protecting the company from legal issues. This is extremely important in protecting how the company moves forward and advances and impacts profit. So what are the key issues in this? Well, for one, people don't like change, especially when you're working with people who are younger generation and older generation. People new to the company and people have been there for a very long time. People don't want to change the way they've been doing things forever. And sometimes they forget when you do implement change. This also takes people's time and compliance. People have to be willing to open up to how the security policy is being implemented and understand these new regulations. It takes time out of their day. It takes time from their work, and they have to be willing and open to wanting to learn the new ways. And then the acceptable use. This is really important. People don't always follow it, and it has to be highly instructed and highly disciplined by understanding what is actually right and wrong within the organization, so that there's a clear understanding so violations can be mitigated. And then training and awareness. This has to be done frequently. People need to be constantly reminded, and security needs to be constantly brought up for awareness, so that people remember what is the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do, and how to prevent themselves, as well as newer things emerge and newer things come up within the organization. They need to be aware of how to go around these risks. And then the physical and digital security. This can be so much as locking your computer when you get up, so that way you're protecting digital assets. Using key locks, now you're protecting physical assets. Making sure the guy behind you is scanning his badge in the door, so that he doesn't tailgate it, because sometimes you don't know all your employees. Sometimes you don't know who's coming in behind you. Sometimes you don't know if that person's been fired the day before and is trying to come in for some type of malicious work. You have to ensure the physical and digital security in an organization, and this can go on many different aspects. But by protecting the physical and digital security, you prolongly are mitigating risk thereof. What other issues can be also brought up? Well, legal and disciplinary issues. If an employee is negligent with information, it can be brought up to legal issues within the firm if data is leaked or information is stolen. but it also can be brought up to the employee for compromising the firm in the first place or the organization. The other disciplinary issues can also lead to going to compliance and having the costly effects of having to handle terminating or disciplining an employee. The other cost associated is any type of security, time you put security, there's a cost. But you always have to understand the cost and benefit analysis. What we're going to do in the beginning is going to cost more, but in the long term, it's going to save us so much money. Then you have the bring your own device risk, or the BYOD. Now, as third parties come into the organization and bring their devices, you run the risk of them not having their devices compliant with current policy. This has to be strongly audited and strongly reviewed to make sure that they are following correct protocol. And then your audits and compliance review. It's timely, it's costly, but it is extremely valuable to review your own work, to check, to get other people to check to make sure that you are following your own policy. And then usability versus security. This is a big issue. Anytime in an organization, when you try to enforce more security, you reduce usability. So the trick is to find the common balance of finding usability and security within the systems, within applications, within day-to-day operations. So that way the company can run smooth and risks are also mitigated. To conclude, we're going to go over a few big things. Remember, the purpose is to protect the assets of the organization, all the infrastructure, all the finances, and even the employees as a whole. You got to protect the profits. You got to protect the firm from legal issues. And even if the company is not liable for its own employees, by keeping them aware, you are helping them protect themselves from incarcerating themselves with legal issues. And then you got to protect the brand. Because remember, if you don't protect the brand, none of this works. None of this even matters. Protecting the brand has to be one of the most important things you have to have in the back of your mind, and that the policy has to be built around, is understanding how to preserve the brand. And then remember, everyone's also a team player. If you see it, report it. Because by not reporting something that you see, you also are in violation of the policy. And that can lead to disciplinary actions, and if it goes through and things get worse, also legal issues. So that's why understanding that all employees, if they see something wrong, they need to report it, because sometimes it can be mitigated at its lowest level before it escalates to something serious. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and have a wonderful day.